Hello and welcome to Dinar Daily. Today, we are undertaking a deep examination of the persistent discussions surrounding the Iraqi economy and the status of its national currency, the dinar. For many years, the topic of a potential revaluation or a significant change in its value has circulated widely. These conversations have often oscillated between intense speculation and outright dismissal, sometimes characterized as mere fantasy. However, many observers have continued to monitor the situation, anticipating an official announcement or a major shift. What often gets overlooked in this widespread discussion is the possibility of a structured, methodical strategy developing behind the scenes. We aim to explore the narrative that suggests a detailed, step-by-step plan is not only being designed but is perhaps already underway. Seeking to understand the components of this alleged strategy as described by various reports. By delving into this topic, the goal is to provide a comprehensive picture of the events and processes being reported. We want to look closely at the actions attributed to Iraq's central bank and understand the context provided by financial experts, who suggest these activities are moving beyond the realm of simple speculation. If you have been looking for a thorough, fact-based breakdown of the different facets of Iraq's economic plans, that is our focus today. The central idea we will explore is that the potential change in the exchange rate is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. It's described as the visible tip of the iceberg, while beneath the surface, a complex series of foundational economic and financial reforms are reportedly taking place. These foundational changes are, according to this narrative, the true focus of the current strategy. A primary element emphasized in these reports is that Iraq is not rushing this process. The concept of a dinar revaluation, if it is indeed a goal, is not being treated as an event that can or should happen overnight. Instead, it is framed as a highly strategic, long-term endeavor. The Central Bank of Iraq, according to this analysis, has been quietly laying the groundwork for several years. This preparatory phase is crucial. The focus is not just on the external value of the currency, but on the internal strength and stability of the entire Iraqi financial system. The argument presented is that without this stability, any sudden or premature alteration in the dinar's value could prove to be destabilizing or even catastrophic for the nation's economy. This focus on foundational strength explains why the process is reportedly so methodical. Each step being taken is described as part of a coordinated effort to reinforce the economy from the ground up. This includes a wide array of activities that don't often capture headlines but are fundamental to monetary policy. We are talking about comprehensive banking reforms, intricate currency stabilization measures, the active management of national gold reserves, and a significant push toward digital modernization across the entire financial sector. These actions are reportedly happening concurrently. The overarching objective, as described, is to ensure that if and when the dinar's value is adjusted, that new value is sustainable, stable, and can be maintained permanently, rather than resulting in a volatile shock to the market. So, the question arises, why is Iraq suddenly regaining the spotlight in these financial discussions? The explanation provided is that the country has been engaged in a quiet, lengthy process of rebuilding its economic infrastructure. It is only recently that the tangible signs of these efforts have started to become publicly visible. Observers point to specific reports from major international financial organizations, as well as subtle but significant updates originating from Iraq's own central bank. These various communications, when analyzed together, appear to indicate a very serious and concerted effort toward modernization. These are not just cosmetic changes. They are described as deep, structural reforms aimed at transforming the very way the Iraqi economy functions on a fundamental level. The modernization efforts are multifaceted. Reports indicate that banking systems across the country are undergoing significant upgrades to meet contemporary international standards. Concurrently, there is a nationwide rollout of electronic payment systems, a move designed to transition the economy away from its heavy reliance on cash. Furthermore, there is a reported strict enforcement of anti-money laundering standards, a critical step for any nation seeking deeper integration with the global financial community. While each of these actions, upgrading bank software, installing new payment terminals, or enforcing compliance, might seem small or technical on its own, they are viewed collectively as crucial pieces of a larger puzzle. They are the infrastructure necessary for the dinar to operate as a strong, credible, and globally recognized currency. Let's look more closely at one of the key pillars, the central bank reforms. Over the past year or so, reports have highlighted a significant push from the Central Bank of Iraq, urging the country's private and state-owned banks to upgrade their technology. This isn't just about faster computers. It's about connecting to international financial messaging systems and ensuring full compliance with modern operational standards. This step is presented as absolutely critical. The logic is that without a stable, secure, and modern domestic banking network that can communicate seamlessly with the rest of the world, any attempt at a currency revaluation could encounter severe technical and logistical failures, effectively isolating the currency despite a new valuation. Beyond the technological upgrades, the central bank's reform efforts are also reportedly focused on transparency and internal stability. This has allegedly involved a massive undertaking to audit accounts across the financial system. As part of this process, reports claim that thousands of fraudulent, dormant, or non-compliant accounts have been identified and closed. The goal of these measures is twofold. First, they directly attack corruption and illicit financial activities, which have long been obstacles to economic progress. Second, by cleaning up the books and improving these internal processes, the reforms make the entire financial system stronger and more resilient from the inside out. This internal housekeeping is deemed a prerequisite for any sustainable external adjustment. The cumulative effect of these banking reforms, the tech upgrades, the international compliance, and the internal audits is to prepare the market for change. Iraq is reportedly taking these steps first to ensure that when or if the dinar's value is eventually adjusted, it does not unleash chaos within the domestic market. A sudden change in value without these safeguards could trigger bank runs, rampant inflation, or a collapse in commercial confidence. This deliberate, step-by-step approach is what analysts use to differentiate this alleged plan from a risky gamble. It is portrayed as a sustainable, measured revaluation process, prioritizing long-term stability over short-term gains, and ensuring the plumbing of the financial system can handle the new pressure. Another aspect of this strategy that is often overlooked in casual discussion is the active strengthening of Iraq's national reserves. Reports indicate that Iraq has been strategically and consistently increasing its gold holdings. This is a classic monetary strategy used by central banks to build confidence in their currency and provide a tangible backing for its value. Furthermore, this strategy is said to involve diversifying the country's foreign currency reserves, moving to reduce its sole reliance on the US dollar. This is not just an economic decision. It is a profound move towards stability and monetary sovereignty. By holding a diversified basket of assets, including gold and other major world currencies, Iraq creates a more robust financial safety net. The strengthening of reserves is fundamental to the entire revaluation narrative. A stronger, more diversified reserve system gives the Iraqi dinar real, tangible backing. This is essential if the currency is to be recognized and trusted on the international stage. Without this solid support, any arbitrary increase in the dinar's exchange rate would likely be perceived by global markets as artificial and temporary, making it susceptible to speculative attacks and rapid devaluation. By meticulously managing its reserves, Iraq is signaling to the world that it is building a currency protected against volatility. This is a critical foundational step that, while not headline-grabbing, is fundamental to understanding the long-term nature of the preparations. Trade reforms are also identified as playing a massive role in this overarching strategy. For decades, Iraq's economy has been dominated by its oil sector, with contracts often settled in cash or in US dollars. The new strategy reportedly involves a significant shift away from these traditional methods, moving instead toward embracing digital payments and electronic settlements for its trade. This is described as a game changer. The reasoning is straightforward. Any currency that aspires to operate effectively in the 21st century global economy must be able to function digitally. Cash transactions are slow, opaque, and difficult to integrate into modern financial systems. Electronic settlements, on the other hand, are efficient and transparent. By modernizing the way its trade is conducted, particularly in the vital oil sector, Iraq is laying the essential groundwork for the dinar to be used in global markets without disruption. Moving to electronic settlements streamlines the entire trade process, from invoicing to payment. It also ensures that if a new exchange rate is implemented, it can be applied efficiently, uniformly, and transparently across all transactions. This digital transformation makes the dinar a more functional and practical currency for international partners to hold and trade. These steps, while technical, are quietly reshaping the country's entire financial landscape, preparing the dinar for a stronger and more stable presence on the international stage. Now, let's address the role of international financial organizations in this narrative. While the Central Bank of Iraq is the public face of the country's monetary policy, reports consistently suggest that behind the scenes, organizations like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, have been involved. The IMF, according to these analyses, has been guiding the reform process every step of the way. It's important to understand how such organizations operate. The IMF does not typically make public announcements about a specific country's future currency adjustments, as this could cause massive market speculation. Instead, its involvement is said to be visible through its official reports and public statements. Observers who follow these developments closely suggest that a careful examination of IMF reports on Iraq reveals what they describe as coded language. This refers to specific financial terminology that signals a deep, ongoing process. When terms like monetary reform, economic integration, currency alignment, and strengthening the financial framework are used repeatedly in official documents, analysts interpret these as checkpoints. They are seen as indicators that Iraq is methodically moving toward a stronger, more internationally integrated currency that is aligned with its economic fundamentals. This coordination suggests the plan is not arbitrary but is serious, structured, and being monitored at the highest international levels. So, what is the central bank reportedly doing right now? The narrative describes a specific, multi-step internal process. The very first step, which is now largely seen as complete, was to stabilize the dinar internally. This meant getting a firm grip on the domestic economy, primarily by controlling the inflation rate. By ensuring that the prices of everyday goods and services remain steady, the central bank prevents public panic and ensures that the purchasing power of ordinary citizens is protected. This internal stabilization is the bedrock upon which all other reforms must be built. Without price stability at home, any change to the external exchange rate would be meaningless and chaotic. The second step in this reported plan focused squarely on the banking sector itself. This phase involved the difficult but necessary work of removing corruption and improving transparency. As mentioned earlier, this included the comprehensive auditing of bank accounts to identify and shut down illicit activities. This anti-corruption drive is essential for building trust, both domestically and internationally. It signals to the world that Iraq is serious about cleaning up its financial system and adhering to global standards. This step is about ensuring that the banks, the primary vehicles for monetary policy, are sound, transparent, and trustworthy institutions. The third step, which reports suggest Iraq is currently deep inside, is the comprehensive digitization of the financial system. This is the practical, infrastructural rollout of the modernization plan. It involves the widespread introduction of electronic payment systems in shops, the upgrading of ATM networks to handle new functions, and the nationwide implementation of IBAN, International Bank Account Number systems. The IBAN system is particularly crucial as it standardizes bank accounts, making them recognizable internationally and allowing for seamless cross-border transactions. This phase is about building the modern, financial highways that a revalued currency would need to travel on following the digitization phase. The fourth step described in the plan involves the introduction of smaller denomination notes. This is a practical measure often taken by countries preparing for an increase in their currency's value. If the value increases significantly, smaller notes are needed for everyday transactions. Finally, the fifth step is the adjustment of the exchange rate itself. This is also expected to be gradual, with the plan calling for an adjustment internally first, perhaps within government budgets or contracts, before it is eventually reflected globally on international exchanges. Each of these steps is precisely timed to avoid disruption and build a strong foundation for the new value. It is important to emphasize that, according to this narrative, the ultimate goal of the revaluation plan is not about creating overnight windfalls or fulfilling speculative dreams. The stated objective is far more pragmatic: to restore balance to Iraq's economy. The aim is to bring the dinar closer to what is considered its fair value, a value based on the country's substantial national wealth, its vast natural resources, particularly oil, and the newfound stability of its modernized financial system. This distinction is critical. The process is framed
as an economic recalibration, not a lottery. It's about correcting a long-standing imbalance and reflecting the nation's true economic strength in its currency, because the goal is sustainable balance. The methodology is not expected to be a single, sudden spike in the exchange rate. Instead, observers anticipate a phased approach. This would likely involve incremental adjustments to the value, followed by stabilization periods where the market is allowed to absorb the change. After each period of stabilization, additional changes could be implemented as the trade and banking systems fully catch up to the new realities. This careful, methodical process is designed to ensure sustainability and, critically, to prevent the severe economic shock that could destabilize the country if the changes were implemented too quickly. Iraq's leadership is reportedly pacing this process deliberately to ensure long-term success. Another aspect often highlighted is the relative silence from mainstream global media on this topic. The explanation provided is that real-time speculative coverage of a potential currency revaluation is rare. Such stories can move markets, create volatility, and interfere with the very stabilization processes being undertaken. Therefore, observers are advised to focus on the actual financial movements rather than headlines. This includes monitoring bank audits, tracking the digital system rollouts, and watching reports on reserve increases. In a related development, it has been claimed that behind the scenes, major U.S. and European banks are already testing their internal systems to ensure they can handle updated exchange rates for the dinar, suggesting preparation at the international level. Interestingly, Iraq is not presented as being alone in this modernization journey. Reports also point to Vietnam as another country implementing a strikingly similar playbook. Vietnam has also been focused on strengthening its
national reserves, aggressively modernizing its banking and payment systems, and aligning its economy with international standards. While analysts suggest Iraq and Vietnam may not be coordinating their efforts directly, their simultaneous reforms are seen as part of a broader regional trend. This trend is about emerging economies moving toward greater financial sovereignty, transparency, and modernization to attract international investment and stabilize their currencies. The fact that multiple countries, particularly two significant regional economies like Iraq and Vietnam, are aligning their reforms in parallel has led to discussions about the potential cumulative impact. If both countries successfully move forward with their economic modernization and potential currency adjustments around the same time frame, it could have a substantial effect on the global market. This impact could be felt particularly in international trade, energy markets, given Iraq's oil and regional partnerships. It reinforces the idea that these are not isolated national developments, but rather part of a larger strategic effort to recalibrate economic relationships and financial landscapes in their respective regions. So, based on all these reported trends, what could be the next observable steps? Following the logic of the phased plan, the central bank would likely focus on finishing the internal adjustments first. This could be followed by a phase where new government contracts begin to use a new internal exchange rate, effectively testing the system's liquidity and stability in a controlled manner. After that, observers might look for the release of Iraq's national budget or other public financial statements that hint at or are based upon the adjusted exchange rate. Finally, the new rates would be integrated into global trading platforms, allowing the dinar to function internationally at its new value. In summary, the narrative we have explored today presents the Iraqi dinar's potential revaluation not as a rumor, but as a strategic multi-year execution. Every decision, from the technical upgrades of bank software to the digital settlement of oil contracts and the steady accumulation of gold reserves, is portrayed as part of a single, carefully coordinated roadmap. This perspective suggests that the real indicators of progress are not found in speculative headlines, but in the structural reforms that create stability and long-term value. By understanding these foundational steps, one can gain a clearer picture of the processes unfolding within Iraq's economy. Thank you for joining us at Dinar Daily.